Hi everyone, my name is Jake Stevenson, and today I'm going to be doing a presentation on the ANSY's ratification of C as an official programming language. So unlike a lot of the trends we see in the tech industry that come and go these days, C's actually been around for decades, and not only been around, it's been a relevant programming language, virtually ever since its inception and all the way up to the present day. Now the ratification of C by the American National Standards Institute established a foundation upon which C would grow into one of the most widely used languages in the world. So in this presentation we're going to examine the ANSI ratification of C as a formal standard through three respects: its history, the standardization process itself, and the significance to the history of computing. So to begin with its history, just a general history of C really. The C language originated at Bell Labs as a solution to the inadequacies of the B programming language. It was invented by a gentleman named Dennis Ritchie, and you can see a picture of him here. The primary advantage of C over B, now there were a number of them, but one of the biggest ones was that C essentially allowed for the use of data types, so you could structure data in such a way that it identified itself as being a string of characters or a floating point value or an integer and so on and so forth. And so by operating just above the machine language level, C offered programmers access to the low-level details of the processor without having to really delve into the arcane details of the assembly and of course machine language. And so as you can probably imagine, this led to the growth and popularity of C, since coders didn't have to tinker with the assembly language to write meaningful and efficient programs. Now, in the 80s, the use of the language increased dramatically due in large part to a widespread availability of compilers. You had a number of open source compilers available on the market, and so that again further increased C's popularity. So moving on to the standardization process itself. At the time, the most consulted C resource was a book called the C Programming Language. And it was also known as the K&R Guide, or just simply K&R, for Dennis Ritchie and a gentleman by the last name of Kernighan. But by the 80s, it became clear that C was going to need a formal standardization. This book, the C Programming Language, it detailed some really important aspects of C, but it just wasn't anywhere near comprehensive enough to serve as a formal or even a de facto standard for the language. So the X3J11 committee was established by the American National Standards Institute for the purpose of developing a standard for the C language. And in 1989, that committee published a standard, and in that same year, it was then adopted and ratified by the ISO. And so moving on to the significance and the impact of this, this ratification, the committee didn't really seek to define C as a completely a new invention. It really just aimed to maintain and solidify the aspects of C that had already made it so powerful and efficient. And so this protected the aspects of C that had made it so popular to begin with, and it also played a very important role in C's continued growth from that point on. And the standardization process itself really only resulted in one syntactical change to the language. And so with the core of C's functionality relatively unharmed, the language maintained its power and portability, but it also gained the uniformity that's associated with formal standardization. And so as the world's most powerful language to date at that time, had become formally standardized, C was really poised to become the de facto standard programming language for many operating systems, including Windows and Unix. So it was obviously quite a widespread use of the language, and also C# and C++ are spin-offs of C, if you will, that have also found relevance in the tech industry or in the computing world, shall we say. So in conclusion, the ANSI ratification of the C language as a standard marked the official recognition and regulation of the language. And this formal standardization really provided the basis for many of the revisions and expansions of the language over the course of many decades as it's continued to maintain its relevance and importance.